The announcement came just 5 days before 5G was to be activated in the US, disrupting schedules worldwide, including that of Air India, forcing them to suspend flights to the US. Worried that signals from 5G transmission towers near airports could interfere with landing instruments, especially the radio altimeter, an instrument that sends out sound waves, which then bounce off the ground to measure the plane's height. Crucial at below 2,500 feet during takeoff and landing, especially in low visibility Category 3 blind landing conditions. Unfortunately, Boeing's 777 and their popular 787 Dreamliners were particularly vulnerable to this interference. The bungling was epic. As far back as October 2020, the Technical Committee RTCA had informed the Federal Aviation Authority about it. The FAA in turn informed the Federal Communications Commission. But 2 months later, FCC still went ahead and auctioned 5G spectrum waves for a whopping $68 billion as the FAA and FCC just passed the buck between themselves. Emirates, who operate many of the Boeings in question, were livid.
This was the most delinquent, utterly irresponsible level of inaction.
So while US authorities went into a frenzy, India seemed quite calm.
Indian aviation will face no problems from its 5G spectrum rollout.
After all, 5G has been deployed in about 40 other countries, some for more than 2 years without any aviation interference issues. This is because the C-band spectrum used for 5G in the US is from 3,700 to 3,980 MHz, while aircraft radio altimeters use the same C-band spectrum in the 4,200 to 4,400 MHz bands. The gap is only 220 meters between the upper end of the US 5G and the lower end of the airline band, which is causing the concerns. The risk factor is very small, but in airline safety, there is no room for error and no chances can be taken when lives are at stake. India's 5G follows European standards of 3,300 to 3,800 MHz, leaving a comfortable gap. China in fact allows in-flight 5G internet since March 2021 without any problems, though it still needs to be switched off for takeoff and landings, as authorities are playing safe from interference from handsets. While Boeing is just saving their ass after their twin crashes in 2019 and their subsequent fudges with the FAA, what can we say about Juhi Chawla's petition in a Delhi High Court against the use of 5G?
With 24/7, 365 days exposure to 5G radiation, humans, animals, flora and fauna will be vulnerable to its harmful effects.
2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, literally all previous wireless technologies have been attacked for their health risks. Mobile telephony has been around since the 80s in the US and in India since 1995. Over 30 years. Enough of a time frame or too small? A study exposing embryonic zebrafish who have 84% of the genes known to be associated with human disease showed no significant impact on development or mortality after being exposed to 5G radiation for 2 full days.
It's basically benign.
However, scientists continue with their research.
While we acknowledge gaps in scientific literature for exposure at millimeter wave frequencies, the likelihood of yet unknown health hazards are very low, if at all.
We can also take solace from the fact that 5G's highest frequency radiation is in the non-ionizing category, unlike the high-frequency X-rays and gamma rays that are known to be harmful. Conspiracy theorists, however, believe that exposure to extremely low-frequency electromagnetic fields, ELF-EMF, produced by everyday items such as copper wiring, Wi-Fi, TVs and computers are all as harmful. Despite the World Health Organization's 2014 clearance of mobile telephony, the belief that wireless waves sent out by telephone and electricity towers are dangerous to health. This paranoia is not new. Even when electricity poles were first installed in 1889, many people opposed it and anti-electricity cartoons were published in newspapers to scare people off. Why? Even the introduction of coffee created a myth that it would drive coffee drinkers to hysteria, leading to women creating a big ruckus. In the early months of the pandemic, 5G was blamed for weakening immune systems, making the body more susceptible to the virus. 5G towers were vandalized in the UK and fake news spread like wildfire. Brussels halted the rollout of 5G, and the San Francisco Bay Area blocked 5G deployment over cancer concerns. The frenzy was such that the World Health Organization was forced to clarify.
COVID-19 is spreading in many countries that do not have 5G mobile networks.
However, it is still in IRC's list of possibly carcinogenic items, but way below dangerous ones like processed meats, alcohol, the infamous coffee, and pickled vegetables or achar. So is absence of proof proof of absence? Think about it. It's one of my favorite sayings and applies to many things. But it was good enough for a judge of the Delhi High Court who rejected Juhi Chawla's plea.
We hereby fine you 20 lakh rupees for a defective suit aimed at gaining publicity.
In her defense, in a video posted online, she clarified,
I was never against 5G. I just wanted the government to certify that 5G is safe.
If so, why didn't she hire a scientific agency like TIS to do this? Just as Juhi's 5G matter got resolved, so did the airline's problems, at least for now.
Service providers have agreed to delay 5G deployment around key airports.
The more permanent way to solve this problem, however, can be by reducing the upper end of the 5G frequency, or creating buffer zones as Europe does by lowering the power somewhat at towers near busy airports. France, within the buffer zone, has gone to the extent of pointing 5G dishes and antennas downward. If you land in Japan, you will barely get 5G signals at all, because their gap is only 100 MHz away from the radio altimeter band. So they place the antennas 200 meters away from the aircraft's flight approach path. Radio altimeters already use filters to suppress unwanted signals straying into the transition zone, but some of it still partially passes through. Many altimeter designs date back to the 1970s, when airways were much less congested. Their electronic systems are weak as compared to 5G signals. 5G towers themselves have their own filters to transmit only in the desired frequencies. But these filters are not perfect either, and they leak signals to nearby frequencies. Changing a radio altimeter nowadays is not like changing a part. Most have integrated it into their flight systems, so it will involve rewriting software and rewiring full segments. While the FAA quickly approved 20 radio altimeter models that carry 90% of passenger traffic, including Air India's, as robust enough to withstand interference, it will struggle to clear older commercial aircraft models, private planes and helicopters. And now for the twist. All this drama happened even though FCC activated only the lower end of the 5G C-band, 400 MHz away from the radio altimeters, exactly how Europe does it today. Add to this the frivolousness of the suit against 5G, reminds me of Shakespeare's play,
Much ado about nothing.
BISBO's limerick. 5G radiation is creating wave after wave, from aircraft safety to a genetic shave. But what you can't see is more a mystery, as imagination takes over and makes you their slave. You will also find these sources listed in the video description section.